Alan's Investigate, airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans. Yay! Hello, welcome to the Alan's Investigate with me, Shona Allen.
And I'm Gary Allen.
And we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. This week, we'd like to welcome our special guest and dear friend, Kevin O'Doherty, author, filmmaker and spiritualist. Kevin was church president of Waterloo Spiritualist Church, Liverpool for many years. His early life was characterised by visitations and what he thought were hallucinations as the result of head trauma when a baby. But when he grew up, he realised his visions and encounters were real. At 18, he knew he wanted to follow spiritualism. He joined the movement, becoming a spiritual healer, teacher and medium. With over 40 years' experience, Kevin sat down to write his first book, The Psychic and Spiritual Awareness Manual. Kevin currently works as a filmmaker, photographer, and graphic designer. Welcome, Kevin.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me on. Welcome to you, and great to be guesting on this, your second show. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you, Kevin. So where did it all start for you then, Kevin?
Well, as Shona quite aptly, puts it in the biog, really as a kid, the reason I had this head trauma quite severe as a baby. I was only, a few months old. So I've still got the scar actually over the third eye. Right, like Harry Potter, And, but, growing up, people said, you should have died and all that sort of stuff, and
yeah.
And so when I used to see things, I'd keep it to myself because I thought it was because of the head injury,
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in a state of fear, I've got to say. Kids' wild imagination, have a wild imagination anyway, which is a gift from God, isn't it? That's what makes us different, as we can imagine.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
Sometimes that can work against you, So, but it wasn't until I was 18, I went to a spiritualist church. I was drawn to a spiritualist church, and a medium came to me and described certain things, people, visions, and I thought, I've seen all these before. I know who you're talking about. I began to realize that maybe these things were real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was the awakening, if you like.
Right.
Realizing that, and it was also a place where I was raised a Roman Catholic.
Right, okay.
Parents are Irish, and I'm born over here, but my sister and I, she's born in Ireland, and we have strong, well, not strong, but the Irish thing with the Roman Catholics.
Yeah.
So I found that Orthodox churches didn't have an answer.
No.
Just to pray, or there wasn't a real answer. It wasn't the answer I was looking for. I knew there was something more to it. So, but the spiritualist church, here was a place where I wasn't a lunatic. I was a
Not the odd one out. Yeah.
So, and I found that quite comforting. I could be more of myself, and I wasn't judged or anything. I felt that high strangeness, things happening to you, could be spoken about amongst friends and congregation and groups. So that was, I would say, the beginning of awareness.
It is difficult, Kevin, because I sort of struggle with that when you look at the Bible itself and you see, I think there's about 750 contradictions in it, and so I struggle with that I struggle to find that can be true if there's 750 contradictions. But I think everybody must find their way on the path, and if they find their way to God through the Bible, then that's great, isn't it?
It is. I prefer the New Testament to the Old Testament. There's some good things in the Old Testament. It's not really my thing, you know.
No.
I do know my Bible.
Yeah.
I know it very, very well. Certainly as good as any priest or vicar or minister. And occasionally they get things wrong, you know, which I like to remind them of now and then, or correct their quote. But you notice that when Christians in particular, when they're around, you know, and they're quoting chapter and verse, they often misquote or they get it wrong, you know. And they, you know, they become set in a certain way of looking at things. And but I think the spirit is more free than that. The book is a guide, really. It's the inspired word of God, if you like. But at the same time, there was a lot more to the Bible than what made it into the Bible. There was a series of spiritual courts held in the 4th century AD in Nicaea.
Council of Nicaea.
Yeah, the Nicene Creed was developed in the 4th century, that the spiritual gifts, as outlined by Paul in the letter to the Corinthians, those who can discern spirits, those who can heal, those, you know, where the gifts are outlined, that these things could only be ministered through the priesthood. So that immediately divorced everyone. I think the problem with orthodoxy is, I was looking on GB News the other day. There was I seldom look at it, you know, but I did see it where can't remember, an Elisa Goddard or something. Goddard, her name is anyway.
Trisha Goddard. Yeah, Trisha Goddard. Trisha Goddard. Yeah.
I don't know who Lisa is.
She's an actress. That's what I do.
Had on someone from the Muslim faith and someone from the Christian faith, and they have to go with clairvoyance and mediums. I don't know if I saw it. And the problem is that they are so clothed with the garments of office and power. They've got their walls, they've got the sacraments, they've got their influences in the corridor, I say, of power. They've got their book, they've got their money and their wealth. They've got everything and left no room for the spirit. And that's why what you might call miracles, as it were.
Well, it's control, Kevin, isn't it?
Say again, sorry?
It's control, isn't it? That's the thing. It's, you know, they're able to control you by that, aren't they? With fear, you know, it's the fear-based thing, isn't it? You have to come via me to get to God, when God is really within everybody, isn't it?
That's right. Beware of intercessors.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, we all found that the Bible's written in allegory anyway, you know, and if you can understand that, then you'll find the truth, you know. But each to their own. That's what I say, you know.
I mean, the Bible has been a great strength to me. It's over the years, you know, and I have a slightly different view on it now, but it doesn't. It's not a way of me getting to God or anything. God, as you say, is within you, and there is no, you know, the Bible is a written book, whereas you need to, as a spirit, you need to live and breathe the spirit here in the here and now. And I find the problem is that people become a slave to the book. And they become a slave to the liturgy of the word instead of interpreting the spirit of what is meant.
Yeah, because I mean, it should be something that inspires you and enlightens you, shouldn't it? And rather than, you know, actually going exactly by every single letter, I don't think the originators of that actually ever meant that. And, you know, everything, to me, everything is within us. We are the temple of God. Each and every one of us, we all have that spark, that divine creation within us. And we just have to come back and start to connect with that again.
I mean, if you look at, for instance, if you try to do healing, for instance, then you're doing the work of the devil, as far as that. You do, you know. But if you look at Jesus, for instance, he was a clairvoyant. Like the woman at the well, for instance, where he says to the woman, she tries to, they have the discussion over whose well it is and who has a right to drink the water. And he says, you know, if you drink of the water of this well, you'll thirst again. But if you drink of the water I give you, then you'll never thirst again. She says, who do you think you are? You know, do you think you are the great one who come amongst us and all this? And he says, if only you knew who it is who asked you for this water. And then he says to her, you've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now you are not married to. Then he sends the disciples off into the town to get a donkey, which is the one he's going to ride into Jerusalem. And he says to the disciples, first thing you'll see is a donkey, and you are to ask the owner for the donkey, tell him who it is who has sent you, and he'll give it to you freely. Now, as spiritualists, we know that that was a setup, that an angel had visited the keeper of the donkey or whatever, you know, or maybe even Jesus had bilocated, right, appeared to the man and said, my disciples will come and ask for this, and it's for a certain purpose. But when they came back, she says to the disciples, he truly is the one. He's told me everything I ever did. And in interpretations, it's unto 5 generations. So that must have been the first recorded private sitting.
Yeah. Well, it does raise a lot of questions, Kevin, doesn't it? You know, I mean, if the Bible is it's basically channeled, isn't it? I mean, if it's the word of God, someone wrote it down, and that's basically channeling, isn't it? You know, it's difficult to comprehend. To me, it's difficult to comprehend, you know, and I do struggle sometimes with it. Yeah.
I mean, to me, maybe there's probably a lot of people that would disagree, but to me, the Jesus figure is basically the idea of what we can all become, that perfected man or woman. Go to the life of Brian, man or woman. Yeah. But it's that perfected state, isn't it, that we can and we have the possibility of becoming into.
Well, you will do all the works I do, and greater works will follow you. If only you would think, do, pray, and trust as I do. One of the last things he said.
Yeah, it seems interesting.
It's failed, hasn't it? Orthodox religion. It doesn't. It's not carried on the message in that respect. It's too steeped in orthodoxy and money, power, greed, and all those things that are wrong.
The materialism.
Yeah,
the materialism has kind of taken over, hasn't it, from the spiritual thing.
It's lost its way, so that's why people are turning away from it more and more, especially so now. You know, it's totally lost its message. It doesn't even, you know, the Orthodox religions of the world predominantly are, you know, it's up to people what they want to believe and that, but really they are instruments of control. They have good things in them, and people do great works within them. And there are spiritual gifts and things done within religions. There are visitations and all kinds of. Yeah, I don't dispute that, but that's based on the faith of the people. And if you want to talk about Jesus and the word faith, faith means to actively believe, and it's become a dirty word, and particularly around psychics and that who think they can produce proof. You can't produce proof. Or evidence isn't proof. Evidence can point one way or another, and what we offer is it's kind of evidence, but we can never prove it because it's up to you to discover that message for yourself. What does it mean to you personally when you receive a message? You see, so
well, you know that Kevin is like with many people. They have different. They see different things. They see different aspects of what energy is, and they got different ideas, haven't they? But to me and Shona, for us, truth is a fact demonstrated. So if it's demonstrated and can be seen, that's how the way we look at truth, and anything else is superstition until such time as it's proven, really. Yeah, you know, so but that's just the way we take it, really.
In a way, we're like the early Christians in that, you know, we kind of meet secretly, and you know, we're chastised by the authorities and the likes of, what's her name, Trisha Goddard and that sort of stuff. There's an agenda going on, isn't it?
Well, there's definitely an agenda. There's no question about it. There's an agenda to take away the you know, the spiritual aspect, so that if you've done away with the soul, and then it's just all materialism, you know. I mean, what good is that? I mean, you know.
Well,
I mean,
understand.
We are, in essence, isn't it? Spiritual. We are spiritual. We're made of energy. We are spiritual. So you can't take that away. But there's been sort of certain parties that have been busy over the many years trying to completely eliminate this from people, so that they're making everything, you know, mainstream science, everything is got to be absolutely material or it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's right. Kevin, if we go back to spiritualism, do you know the origins of spiritualism for the people out there?
Well, there's kind of modern spiritualism, which began with the Fox sisters. I don't really buy that story, to be honest with you. It's not really my cup of tea. I think that modern spiritualism really began in the 1700s with Emanuel Swedenborg. So have a look at his work. He was a foremost metallurgist. He saw spiritualism as the re-emergence of the Christ powers. That what he said was there's been, you know, centuries of darkness, and then there's nothing until you get to St. Francis, until you get to Joan of Arc, until you get to Emanuel Swedenborg. Like he was at a dinner. This is what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote in The History of Spiritualism. He was at a dinner in Stockholm. This is Emanuel Swedenborg. And he, without going into any altered state or trance, he said there is a fire. Sorry, he was 300 miles away from Stockholm. Sorry. He said there is a fire taking place in Stockholm now, and many people have died. And in those days, in the, you know, the 1700s, it took a while for news to reach. And indeed, there had been a terrible fire, and he described it in great detail. But he didn't go into any trance, you see. He was just at a dinner, and he just stopped what he was doing, and he spoke that way. He also produced ectoplasm, but he called it ideal. Sorry, let me get it right. Ideoplasm, he called it. And he said, the minute that I think of, he said, this mist forms, he said. And the minute I think of someone passed over, it instantly takes on their form. He said, but this substance comes from me, from out of me. It uses the fibers of my clothes and my skin. You know, he understood about physics and things. He was, I'd say, the foremost metallurgist of his time, a great intellect, you know, a scientist and a great thinker, and very, very gifted. And so I'd say he was really the beginning. But the problem why he's not acknowledged in a lot of spiritualist churches is because he was fundamentally Christian, and he saw the emergence of Christ's powers. Whereas, as you know, within spiritualism, there is also, which is why I've left it, by the way, one of the reasons why, is that there's no recognition that Jesus did anything that was spiritual, or that he was a great medium, teacher, healer, that he had visions, that he foresaw things, that he went up onto the astral plane, that he manifested things, that he also worked with all the what he did in the Bible was nothing new. It had already been done before in the other texts. If you read what Reverend G. Morris Eliot wrote in his book When Prophets Spoke, he talks about spiritualism in the Old Testament, and shows that everything Jesus did had been done before, like the walking on water, like the so-called raising of the dead, which it wasn't, because he didn't raise Lazarus from the dead. I mean, if you just pick on one miracle very quickly, people insist that he raised the dead. But if you actually read that account of Lazarus, he's 3 days away from where Lazarus is. He gets the news that Lazarus has died, and he says, but he is not dead, but sleepeth. You know, this illness is not unto death, is what he says. He never once says that Lazarus is dead. The same with Jairus' daughter. He never once says she's dead. I'll go and wake her from her sleep, he says. Because the spirit world told him, Lazarus ain't over here, mate. You know.
What is, sorry, Kevin, what is interesting is that spiritualism became a religion, didn't it?
Sadly, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think, what was the reason for that? It was,
Well, I think, I mean, I'm not sure about this. Perhaps you'll tell me, Kevin, but I thought it was to do with the fact that it was to stop them being persecuted under the Witchcraft Act.
Are you familiar with that, Kevin, that one?
Yeah, vagrancy, wasn't it? Believe it or not, under the Vagrancy Act, they tried to find, it was with, what's her name? Helen
Duncan.
Ellen Duncan, yeah.
Shame on me forgetting that.
You very naughty boy.
You are naughty boy.
Well, you know, I listened to one of her seances. I got a tape recording of one of the seances, and I didn't really rate it very much. So she kind of went down. But she did stand up and do good things for spiritualism. But Churchill stepped in, and I think she was done under the Vagrancy Act, wasn't she, in the end? The Witchcraft Act was so old. But I don't buy any of that either. I just think, you know, I don't understand any of that, why, you know, people weren't persecuted. I just think that was a construct. You could meet and do whatever you wanted, you know. I think the thing with the Helen Duncan case was that she was a very good medium. She didn't need to fake it. Give me for saying that. I just know some spiritualists are tearing their hair out. But, you know, it's just my opinion, you know, take it or leave it. I've got tapes, you know, listen to them.
Well, that's the idea of free speech, isn't it?
Yeah,
that, you know, whether people like it or they don't like it, at least you can say it, you know, without fear of abuse.
I mean, that's the thing with me and Shona, Kevin. We're not spiritualists, and we're not religious either. We have no interest in religion at all. But nevertheless, we want to bring the truth to people. So we want everyone's opinion and listen to it. And we won't be judgmental on anything. We'll just listen to it and let the viewers make their own mind up, or the listeners make their own mind up on what they think about it. It's very interesting because in the times of William Blake and Shelley and all that, there was they were really into it big time, wasn't they? And also you've got Rudyard Kipling and Agatha Christie. You know, a lot of people don't realise it. Some of the greatest writers and poets and philosophers, Plato, they all understood about the manias.
Well, yeah, Plato called it the manias of economy, didn't he? And I think this is the thing.
Rupert Brooke as well. Rupert Brooke.
Many great writers, artists, poets, musicians. You know, they're connecting to that stream of the source, the stream of consciousness, if you like, and it's all there for the plugging into, as it were, isn't it? Really.
Well, they had the Church of England in 1935, I think it was. I've got the report somewhere. Published a report into spiritualism. They were actually taking it on as, you know, again, seeing it as the re-emergence of the Christ powers, but then they decided not to, for various reasons. And we can speculate on those. They don't really go into too much about it, but I think what I was going to say earlier as well is that they don't understand how it works. They don't understand auras and energies. They don't understand astral traveling. They don't understand clairvoyance or how healing works. They don't understand chakras are. They don't understand interpretation of colors and interpretation of visions and the code of the spirit in the eyes of the soul. They don't understand how all that works. So because of that, it's easier for them to just keep what they've got rather than tear up all the stuff that, you know, they've written for so long about what they believe, their creed. And they don't like you messing with their creed, of course. So I'm not going to go at Orthodox Christians so much, but they're losing. I mean, I'm not really bothered about Orthodox Church. I just think that they don't understand even why they're losing people.
No, exactly. No, it's interesting that when you talk to you know, skeptics, I've spoken to Richard Wiseman and Chris French and James Randi. I mean, do you remember when James Randi had this $1 million challenge, wasn't it? Anyone who could prove that any kind of psychic or paranormal ability. And when I challenged James Randi, he wrote back to me and said I was a deluded person if I could do what I said I could do. but there was no challenge there, no $1 million.
No.
I mean, you know, it was a load of nonsense, wasn't it? You know, and the thing you got to question is, Kevin, is if you spend 30 years searching for something and you don't find it, then why don't you take another job? I think.
I mean, does the £1 million or dollars or whatever it is, does it actually exist?
No, it never existed. No, it never existed. It was all nonsense, wasn't it? But
yeah.
I think Randy was going to magic out of his hat, wasn't he?
Oh yes.
Ka-ching!
I mean, do you remember James Randi? He was a very famous magician.
Yeah.
Everyone knew James Randi, didn't they? Especially in America, he was really well known, wasn't he?
I mean, if you
sorry, Kevin, go on.
You know, meeting the skeptic. I kind of did that in the first book. But really, what I say to people, if you meet someone who doesn't believe in God and they, you know, it's a bit of a challenge, you know, they're challenging you for what you believe. What I usually say is, and it usually upsets people, but I say, you know, so in the beginning, you know, there was nothing, and shouldn't it have ended there then, you know? And but all of a sudden, nothingness became everything, you know, in the form of a big explosion. Apparently, this Big Bang thing, and it wasn't like any explosion we know. Instead of destroying everything, it created everything.
Yeah.
And got it right first time, which, you know, Frederick Hoyle, Astronomer Royal, I think it was in 1971, said that's like a hurricane whirling through a junkyard and assembling a jumbo 747 jet fueled and ready to go or something. He said, you know, it's as likely as that, you know. And, you know, it formed into, you know, atoms and neutrons and protons and molecules and liquid solids, light and shade and moons and stars and galaxies, and all seemed to know what to do, didn't it? And eventually form organic life, and which resulted in you and me talking the way we are right now. You know, it's
why can't people accept that there is no explanation for any of it? I mean, you know, why don't you just accept you can't explain how everything started? You ain't got a clue. It's better off if you said you ain't got a clue than trying to say billions of years ago this done this and this done this, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
A fairy tale.
It is. I've got very little time for science, I'm afraid. Honestly. And when I listen to programs on science programs, I just think, what the hell are they talking about?
Well, I've noticed that it's all about theory, though, isn't it? It's the Big Bang theory. The theory of evolution.
Yeah, but scientific theory is different, my dear.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. And mathematicians are winning physics prizes. The Nobel Prize for Physics was won by a mathematician.
Oh, Lord. Yes, it's very, very interesting, the old skeptic thing and that. But, this is what I try to say, Kevin. Everybody has the gift of healing. And everybody has the gift of sixth sense, even if you're the most ardent skeptic in the world. Yeah. You still have access to this source, to this power, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, scientism is a religion. They have cardinals and bishops and popes. So like Brian Cox and, who's the guy in the wheelchair? What was his name?
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah. Hawkins and Dawkins and all them. They're like the cardinals, bishops, and popes, and the priests are the ones in the colleges who are teaching all this in the university. So it's a religion, and if you mess again with their creed, you don't, sign up to what they believe in, then you are a heretic. And yet, they expect you to buy that scenario I've just given you about everything came from nothing. So, and then, I also say to them, so you're self-created. Well, you're very accomplished, self-created person, How does that work? So all this is confidence, and, it's just so, you just drop that. It's toxic, right? It's a demonic way of looking at things. It's a dark way of looking at things, because what they're doing is divorcing you, not just from heaven and earth, as Orthodox religion does. But what they are also doing is They are making you think of things. They are saying that you're a tiny, insignificant speck on a planet that's hurtling through space, which is, you know, the tip of the eastern spiral arm of a galaxy, allegedly, even though, like, we've never photographed this galaxy. They just assume this, you know. And that's what you are. And that then makes you think, well, hang on a minute, I'm nothing. And if you tie that in with Darwinism, you know, social Darwinism, it's, well, it's the law of the jungle, mate. You know, I'm better than you. I did more than you. You know, I survived. Survival of the fittest. Only the fittest will survive. You know, tough, mate. You know, sorry you didn't make it, but that's the way it is. And it's a pretext for their tyranny. And this is why, because as human beings, we have empathy, we care, we have all the positive attributes of the soul, such as compassion, you know, love, and we also have, you know, an imagination, and we can empathize with people. We don't have to go somewhere to understand the situation, but they want us thinking like monkeys and all the other creatures that don't have an imagination. So, you know, a tiger comes by some monkeys, right? And all the monkeys, they don't have this conversation that the scientists tell you they have. They communicate. They don't converse. They communicate. They make noises, and they don't have a meeting afterwards and say how they could have handled the situation better. They don't write down about it, and they don't.
them on Zoom, can't you?
And they don't put things in place to make sure it never happens again. You know, they're just reacting because they're creatures. That's all they are. All the animals are creatures that way. You know, they are a certain thing of the earth in that respect. But we are not animals. We are different in that we speculate about things. We're having conversations now when, you know, we speculate about our origins, and we speculate about all manner of things, and they try to shut that down within us. And if you look, what's really under attack is the human spirit. If they can break your spirit, then they've won. And that's where we must never, in the Nag Hammadi text, there's a part where John, who wrote the book of Revelations, is hiding in a cave, and Jesus appears to him because he was a clairvoyant, John. And he says to him an interesting thing. He says, the one who sees reveals.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was your first book, Kevin, for the audience. The Nag Hammadi, wasn't it?
Nag Hammadi. That one.
Oh, yeah, that one you got in your hand. That's the one that you're pointing to.
Well played, sir.
Well played. Johnny good.
2 for 1, mate. 2 for 1. Come on.
2 for 1, mate. 2 for 1.
Water can. Because you got a pretty face, I'll tell you what, I'll throw the 2 of them in. Right. And a pen.
All the old market traders coming out there.
Yeah. What else have I got?
I expect my signed editions in the post then, young man.
Yeah, it is. But there's a strike on at the moment. So,
okay. All right then. Fair enough.
what were we saying? I've totally forgotten now.
You were talking about John in the cave.
Yeah. So then he says another interesting thing to him, which I really love this. He says, you're the light of the world. He said, and for all this darkness that's around you, for the sake of that darkness, your light shines all the brighter. It stands out more. He said, but you must never allow that darkness to enter your light, because it will dim it.
I mean, we was talking last week with Michelle, wasn't we, about that you can't have light without dark. You can't have good without bad. You can't have right without wrong. You know, there's two sides to it. And if you look at the fox who kills the timid rabbit, and how the cat plays with the mouse and before it kills it, and all kinds of stuff. And you just and even the wanton violence in the human being, and you think to yourself, what the hell is that all about? What the hell is that all about? I don't know. I mean, just this week we was watching how the fox hunters, oh God, you can't even believe that you could throw a fox to a bunch of hounds, can you? It's absolutely despicable, isn't it?
It is.
So, I don't know. The human being, I don't understand the human being. I've got to be honest. It's a wacko at times, isn't it?
I think we deal with complicated things every day. We're not like we used to be back in the old days. I was looking at a film of a German railway. I've put it on my Facebook page.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, just to describe it for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's the, can't pronounce it, it's German. Begins with W.
Hello.
Yeah, the railway anyway. And it's an overhead railway. I'll see if I've got the thing here. It's an overhead railway, and it's still running now. It was made in 1902, so it's 120 years ago.
It's incredible, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, if you look at the, oh, it's not giving me the name now, damn. If you look at the street scenes, it's very, I don't know if I can get it on there. Hold on. I should have screen shared it really, just to show people. It's probably not going to show up very well on there, I don't think.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah.
So it's in stunning clarity. It's a journey on this train that goes through the town in Germany, wherever it's called. And but what's interesting, when you look at people walking around, going about their affairs as they usually do, and it's just a peace and tranquility. And this isn't a construct. This is a snap of life. This is, you think, and if you read the comments, you know, I want to go there. Why? Look, look what we've lost.
You know, for sure.
To define the past as being very hard, and you know, you're lucky you're alive now. Who now doesn't want to go back to 1990, 1980, 1960, or some other era, some other time?
Yeah.
The attack on the spirit, you say.
Yeah.
And so when you look at old footage like that, it immediately think, you know, look at the values, look at the street life, just how things were. Everything's, you know, tidy. People have got things to do. They seem healthier and happier. And of course, an amazing achievement, the railway itself, and it's still astoundingly is still running today. So
yeah, it's amazing.
It
is amazing. Yeah.
But you know, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say that in today's society, as it's been for quite a long time, people are slaves to the media, aren't they? They're slave to television. You know, they're slaves to it, and they're controlled by propaganda. And it would be lovely to see things change, where truth becomes important again. You know, where it becomes people's essence, truth.
Yeah, it's about finding the spiritual self, a connection, reconnecting ourselves, or making that connection stronger with that which created us. Because as it says in the Gospel of Thomas, that which created you, that which is within you will save you. But if you deny that which is within you, then that which is within you will destroy you. And you see it when people have a gift and they never develop it. It could be a pianist or something, and they never ever, you know, take up the piano, say, or never accomplish it. And they become, it can destroy them, you know, it can become something. And you got to look at the conditions why these things are shut down in us. And, you know, the attack on the human spirit today, I think, has never been stronger because we have technology, we can reach more people. And so, you know, we've got to be more clairvoyant. We've got to bring healing. We've got to reconnect. Look at not just the German film, but look at things of wildlife. Look at some nature. I know you've shown, you take a lot of really great photographs of flowers and things. And I've written to you before. I said I find these very inspiring. They, you know, when you're forgetting about things, when you're getting tied up in the material thing, you know, you switch to something like a beautiful flower, and it reminds you when you were a kid, and that connection. And that's what they're trying to destroy. You look at society now. They're building these rabbit hutches for everyone to live in.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, there's just so many fields and things. We see that where we live in Norfolk, and they're just so much of the agricultural land and the green fields are just being swallowed up by developments now, more and more.
And I've never seen so many trees cut down as I have in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I mentioned this to you the other day. I don't know if it's happening, anyone listening around the world, it's happening where they are, but certainly in the UK, and I know you agree, seems to be a lot of people walking down the street, and I'm not talking about with earbuds in, right, on a phone, but who are talking to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that as well.
Like, you know, and it reminds me of, you know, so I'm writing a new book at the moment. It's not out yet, but it describes some of the stories that I dealt with, particularly when I was president of Waterloo Spiritualist Church.
Right.
Been called out to many different things, you know, hauntings and events and things. I've experienced a lot as well, so I've kind of put it into chapters, so you can just dip in and out. You don't have to. It's not a linear narrative, you know. You can just go to that one where. Like Poltergeist or something like that, you know. But I had I've changed the names of a lot of things in because the people are still alive. It's fairly recent history, a lot of it, so I've had to change all the things out of respect, you know. But the events,
sure.
One of the things that I've come to realize lately, and seeing people talking to themselves, it's made me think, and I put a chapter in the book about this. Like I had a chap who used to come for healing, and he would hear voices in his head. And what you find with a lot of people who hear voices in the head is that most of the time they like the voices, but the doctors don't.
No.
I don't like that, you know. And so you say to them, well, what do the voices say? And you say, well, they tell me things. And you say, well, what did he tell you? You know, they tell me that, you know, they like you. Or they mightn't like that person over there. Or when I'm talking to someone, they will tell me that they don't like that person. And I say, well, what's that about? And then they say, well, you know, it later turns out to be true. And psychologists and, you know, psychiatrists say, well, that's the outcome of something you've already set in motion in your head. You know, you planted the seed because some imaginary voice. But here's the thing: in the 80s, I became very clairaudient for a short time. And it's gone now, totally gone. But, and they opened me up that way to teach me certain things. And the voices came in a number of ways. But how it starts is they call your name to get attention. And you find this with, you know, schizophrenics as well, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So no comments. I can just imagine the comments section now going, you know, feedback, you know. But anyways, that aside, satire aside, right, is that why would you call your own name to yourself?
Exactly.
They're calling their own name, right? So that's the way of letting you know that this is someone talking to you.
Yeah.
So I began to respond, and then when I responded, I heard all these voices go, "Yes, he's heard us. He's heard us.
He's heard us in the studio."
Yeah, it's like that, you know. So, and then I kind of shut it down for a while, you know, and then over a period of months, I went through this. It lasted a couple of years, but it took a couple of months to get into this. So I was interested in a number of people, quite a few actually, who come to me in my ministry, shall we say, and who hear voices, been diagnosed as schizophrenic. Now, what's interesting is with this chap, he was very intelligent. He said, when I walked past the church, he said, because our church was on a high street, it was like a shop front, you know. He said, when I touched the window, he said, the voices go away. So he said, I feel that I must come into the church, because he doesn't always like the voices, you see.
Yeah.
And they tell him bad things. This chap in particular. And he was under his doctor's care and a psychiatrist. And I had a series of conversations with him, and I found this very interesting, is that he said, the voices tell me that the medication, the drugs my doctor has given me, together with what my psychiatrist gives me, because they have prescription pads too. He said, are killing me. This is just what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd get angry at the doctor, and I'd get angry at the psychiatrist. And I said, in what way would you get angry? He said, well, I just felt it. I wouldn't do anything to them, And he wasn't that way inclined anyway. But looking at what we know about things, and it come out very recently, didn't it, a few months ago, that there's no cure in a pill for a mental illness. That's an official. That's come out now, after years of speculations, just research and do it, brain chemistry and stuff like that. But he already was way ahead of the game, because they were just filling with drugs. And when he stopped taking his drugs, he just stopped taking them one day. And he had a breakdown, and the voice was saying, see, they're not good for you. But in a spiritual sense, that's not how God wants you to be. God doesn't want you taking drugs. I know, like, we're, in terms of pharmaceuticals, we've got to all be very, very careful. But I'm just talking about his story and his anecdotes, and I put it in the book. It's very interesting what he says.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Psychologists and psychiatrists who actually agree with what he would say. So he said to him, I like my voices. I like them. I don't want them to go away. So when Evelyn Ryder, who was our vice president, was taken into care, she was a clairaudient medium. And she went missing from the church. We couldn't find her. And her son had put her in, a home. I don't know why. She just, for some reason, stopped coming to the church. She only lived in one of the cottages a few streets away. So eventually tracked her down, through neighbours and stuff. And then we went to visit her. And all the medical staff was saying, she's deluded, she hears voices. And I said, well, she's in her 80s, she's been a medium for like probably 60 years. She's travelled all over the country as a clairaudient medium. She listens to what the spirits say. And they were giving us stuff. So, this is where it's not understood. So hang on, let me just finish this, right? Here's the bottom line. It's like you've got for thousands of years, since the beginning, right? Talk of demons, spirits, intercessors coming into people's lives, inspiring them, telling them good and bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go back to after the Second World War to around 1920. Yeah, around 1920. Not really before then, because things were still pretty enlightened up till about, 1920. Suddenly you get to that 100 years ago, and everything that's gone before is nonsense, but take this pill instead.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You look at the including the Bible, you look at all the Quran, you look at all the text going back through time, every religion and every world civilization all over the world document these beings, document these intrusions. And these voices and people being, plagued and intruded upon for good or bad, yeah. And then suddenly, 100 years ago, that's all nonsense.
It's all superstition, wasn't it?
So, I'm constructing that chapter. I've composited him because there's a number of other cases. I've put it all into one case. So that's basically the form of the book. It'll be incidents.
We look out for that, Kevin.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So
I think it's interesting though, Kevin, what you're saying, because like with all my philosophy and poetry works and that, I mean, their idea of what it was that I had a multi-personality disorder. I said, what? They're all good writers. They're all poets. They're all writers. They're all philosophers, are they? Well, absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? It's absolutely ridiculous, And there's one thing you could look up is Sonnet 86 of Shakespeare, where it says, "Hear the affable familiar ghost, which nightly goes in with intelligence." And I think anybody who understands that will understand that the goal is to feed with intelligence. and you, me, Shona, and anybody else like us, we have been fed with intelligence, and that's the simple bottom line of it, isn't it?
It is. You know, and intelligence is by design as well. I mean, if you look at a blade of grass, it has intelligence because it knows what to do.
For sure.
The acorn turns into a mighty oak. When you look at the acorn, you think, well, I can't see the tree. How does that turn into that?
Exactly.
We come back to that thing about it all being a coincidence, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like going into nature. That's why I like going into nature so much and photographing it, because, you know, I just stand there in awe of everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And if people actually take the time just to stop and think and look and take it all in, and you're thinking that tree there, this tiny flower that every year it pops up from a bulb, you know, it's resurrected every year, isn't it? Every spring. And it's just, you see the divine in everything. And I see the divine in people, in each other. And I think, you know, we as a human race, we need to start waking up and realizing this.
Yeah. What someone said to me, what is God? And I said, God is that sublime intelligence that runs throughout everything. That's the best way of describing God, isn't it? I mean, what other name could you say for God other than the sublime intelligence that runs throughout everything in nature?
And, you know, when meeting the skeptic, and dare I say with Orthodox religions as well, is that we don't look for God. We see everything as evidence of God. Flowers, the trees, you and I. This is evidence of God. We're not looking for God. This is evidence of God.
Of course. And it's the thing with, you know, people say, you know, trying to find evidence of miracles and things, but life is a miracle. Life itself, you know, the trees, the flowers, the birds that fly, everything is a miracle, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
you are a living miracle, Kevin. A walking, talking, living miracle, aren't you? You know, as we all are.
Yeah, we are. And, you know, we stand as a testimony to God, to, you know, the reality beyond. Because another thing to think of is that the material plane that we're in now is just a lower aspect of the spirit world. You know, this is the spirit world, but it's in a material form. It's a mirror, a reflection, as the term's used a lot.
It's almost like sort of getting in a car and driving it, isn't it? You're having that experience. You're a spirit having an experience in the physical, aren't you?
Yeah.
To me, anyway.
Because, and, you know, people wonder about the future and what's going to happen. And, you know, you shouldn't worry too much, because everything I worry about never happens. So worrying works.
No, that's what I'm saying. You know, like yourself, I mean, I've seen many things for the future, and I'm not worried. I think the future is going to be very bright, unlike a lot of people, because I believe that the truth will come, and everybody will understand what we're all about. You know, that's what the purpose of this show is that it's bringing truth to people, and whether you like it or you don't like it is immaterial. The fact of it is that's the aim of the show, to bring truth to people. And, you know, we have to have guests like yourself, Kevin, to bring people enlightenment. That's it.
Well, it can also break you as well, can't it? You know.
Well, yeah, it could. It can, but you know, I mean, that doesn't bother us, because at the end of the day, truth is paramount to everything. You know, truth is paramount. So
we become stronger as a result of that. Because everything that you have, I mean, if you go back 5 years ago, well, I certainly with myself, if I go back 10 years ago, I go back 15 years ago, I believed different things, and I understood differently. I mean, what I say to people is, look where you are now, how much more you know now than you did before.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
You know, know so much more now. And, you know, this thing on to, you know, modulate that a bit to aging, you know, there's this thing to destroy the human spirit of everyone's too old, everything's past, and, you know, you got to do it by a certain age and all this kind of stuff. And that's a toxic way of looking at things, because like in all the things I do in my work and in my life, I'm much better at it now than I ever was. I even drive the car better. I do the garden better. I edit better.
You can do my garden then.
Yeah.
Again?
Leave our garden alone.
But generally, we do things better. We're better family members. We're better at everything. You know, we cook better.
Yeah.
We get better as we get older. We mature.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
It's seen as a negative thing, and it's not. It's the destruction of what it is to be a human being. You know, you look at other cultures, and in the past, and jump back to the German film, old people back then were respected for their knowledge.
Yeah.
And I was very close to my paternal. I didn't know my mother's mother very well, and she passed when I was a kid. But I was partly raised by my Irish grandmother. And she come from Valentia Island, you know, which is off the coast of southwest coast of Ireland. And she gave me a different outlook on things, you know. She gave us all an outlook on things that was different. You know, she shaped us who we were in an awesome way, which is why I love Valentia Island. Whatever it was about that place that made her who she was, there's something else to do with the geography. The point I'm making is, as she got older, she became better at things. You know, we all do in our skill sets and all the things that we do. So what is the problem? I mean, musicians, I went to music college. I play better now than I've ever done. You know, so
I think it's nice to have a passion, but I think one of the greatest gifts anyone can have is the ability to reason.
Yeah.
You know, to have a conversation and to reason.
Yeah.
You know,
and again, that applies.
The conversation has been lost on a lot of people. They've got no ability to reason at all.
No.
Oh God.
If it's not their way, they don't want to know.
If it's not their way, they don't want to know. That's absolutely. So, you know, but yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, Kevin.
It has, and I'm sorry that we haven't got more time, because we've got so much to talk to you about. So I think we're probably going to have to get you on again if you don't mind.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Maybe your book will be ready by then as well. You never know.
Well, yeah, you know, but no, seriously, thanks for having me on, and it's great what you're doing.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you to you as well. I'm really looking forward to reading them, because I haven't actually got to read your books yet, and you know, I've been delving a bit into the sort of historical and biblical kind of aspects of things, and you know, I've found out some really interesting things, and I'm hoping at some point to get my own book out about all my findings as well. So I'll be really interested to see, you know, your take on it all. Be fascinating. But anyway, thank you so much, Kevin, and I look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Seeing as we're friends on Facebook anyways.
You take care, my friend. Take care.
All right, you
take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
All the best, Kevin.
Bye.